Genesis 10:8 And Cush begat Nimrod, he began to be a mighty one in the earth. Genesis 10:9 He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord. Genesis 10:10 In the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. On April 29, 2003, the BBC News released an astounding report. Gilgamesh tomb believed found. Archaeologists in Iraq believe they may have found the lost tomb of King Gilgamesh, the subject of the oldest book in history. An astounding news report similar to the discovery of the tomb of King Arthur, or perhaps the tomb of Alexander the Great, was quickly forgotten because almost immediately, less than a month later, on March 20, 2003, the United States launched a shock and awe campaign that quickly overwhelmed Iraqi forces. At the start of the bombing campaign, the archaeology team headed by a German-led expedition had to quickly leave their discovery. The BBC News reported the following statement from Jorg Fassbinder. I don't want to say definitely it was the grave of King Gilgamesh, but it looks very similar to that described in the epic. Most historians generally agree that Gilgamesh was a historical king of the Sumerian city-state of Uruk, who probably ruled sometime during the early part of the early dynastic period, circa 2900 to 2350 BC. Gilgamesh is also connected to King Enmebargesi of Kish, a known historical figure who may have lived near Gilgamesh's lifetime. Furthermore, he is listed as one of the kings of Uruk by the Sumerian king list. Fragments of an epic text found in Mituran, modern Tel Haddad, relate that at the end of his life Gilgamesh was buried under the river bed. The people of Uruk diverted the flow of the Euphrates passing Uruk for the purpose of burying the dead king within the river bed. However, he is also a legendary figure similar to King Arthur and Alexander the Great. As reported by the BBC, Gilgamesh is the hero of perhaps the oldest epic ever recorded. An epic story about a king who loses his friend and sets about to discover the secret of immortality. Mr. Fassbinder, of the Bavarian Department of Historical Monuments in Munich, also told BBC News. The most surprising thing was that we found structures already described by Gilgamesh. We covered more than 100 hectares. We have found garden structures and field structures as described in the epic, and we found Babylonian houses. But he said the most astonishing find was an incredibly sophisticated system of canals. Very clearly, we can see in the canals some structures showing that flooding destroyed some houses, which means it was a highly developed system. The Epic of Gilgamesh had been well known throughout the ancient world but was almost lost in time until the Akkadian text of the Epic of Gilgamesh was first discovered in 1849 AD by the English archaeologist Austin Henry Layard in the library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh. In the epic, Gilgamesh is introduced as 2/3 divine and 1/3 mortal. At the beginning of the poem, Gilgamesh is described as a brutal, oppressive ruler. Which raises an interesting number as written about by Rob Skiba in his book Babylon Rising. Gilgamesh was 33.3% human and he was 66.6% God. The 66.6% God number should be interesting to students of Bible prophecy. In the Qumran scroll known as Book of Giants, circa 100 BC, the names of Gilgamesh and Humbaba appear as two of the antediluvian giants. It is certain that, during the later early dynastic period, Gilgamesh was worshipped as a god at various locations across Sumer. In his 1904 book Das Alte Testament im Licht des Alten Orients, the German Assyriologist Alfred Jeremias equated Gilgamesh with the king Nimrod from the Book of Genesis. Peter Goodgame, in his book The Giza Discovery, links Nimrod to a host of legendary figures including Gilgamesh, Baal, Apollo, and Osiris, thereby making Nimrod the fountain of all occult and esoteric knowledge. The discovery of Nimrod's tomb would probably be the most important discovery in history for occultists. Since I believe occultists run the world at the present moment, it goes a long way in explaining one of the most senseless wars in US history. One thing that has piqued my interest are rumors that the US military secured the archaeological dig at Uruk almost immediately and they found more than one ancient tomb at the dig site. Another interesting point is the location of the discovery as reported by BBC News. The German-led expedition has discovered what is thought to be the entire city of Uruk, including, where the Euphrates once flowed, the last resting place of its famous king. The city of Uruk and the tomb of Gilgamesh was discovered where the Euphrates once flowed. This reminds me of the passage in the book of Revelation. Revelation 9:13 And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before God. Revelation 9:14 saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, Loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. Revelation 9:15 And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the third part of men. I produced other videos about the 4 angels bound beneath the Euphrates River called Signs of Almighty. Could the occultists who run this country have seized the body of Nimrod, and perhaps other mummified remains, and secreted them away to some occult lair or to a top-secret government lab? Would they try to reanimate them or attempt to clone them? Another theory proposed by Rob Skiba is that Nimrod will be the Antichrist during the Great Tribulation based on a prophecy in the book of Revelation. Revelation 17:10 And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. Revelation 17:11 And the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goes into perdition. It was Mr. Skiba's theory in Babylon Rising is correct, that Nimrod is the fallen king who was, and is not, and he is the 8th. Then I bring this up because this year is the 20-year anniversary of the discovery of the tomb of Gilgamesh. Therefore, if occultists did produce a clone of Gilgamesh, or reanimated his body, or inculcated some willing human vessel with his spirit, it could be approximately 20 years old today. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. William Shakespeare. If you find this content interesting, please like and subscribe. Thanks. M1.